Hello, this is Arkeem Ra, and I'm here once again, back by popular demand. Eve Howard, thank you for coming back on the show.
Thanks for inviting me again. This is great. I had a couple of people already ask, when are they going to have the part two? So I just figured let's just do it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you reached out to me about it. Yeah, let's just go right into it. You were telling me some stuff about what awakened you to sort of start looking into um, your experiences more and what was going on with you. And it had to do with a blue orb. Do you want to maybe go into that story a little bit?
Yeah. I was taking a little road trip down to Minneapolis with a friend of mine, and we were driving in her car and she had a Mustang. And so we were kind of just flying on the back roads in Minnesota. And we came off this one road and we take a right, and there's a field to the right, and I look as we're turning the corner. I happen to just kind of look out at the woods, and I see this huge orb. It was probably about 5 feet in diameter, and it was like a very vivid blue, and it was not opaque because I could see through it. I could see like the trees behind it. I could see like the line because it was like a field, and then there were woods, and it was like a tree line, like a straight line, like they had cut the trees that way. And this orb was just kind of slowly moving right along the tree line, kind of coming towards the road where we had just come from. So as it's going this way and we're going this way, I happen to see it. And I see through it. I could see like little streams of like light, or like slivers of light. And they weren't like different colors or anything. They were like a blue, a lighter blue. Um, I guess the best way to describe it, because I've looked it up so many times, was it's almost like that little weird light ball that you see at Spencer's that's behind the counter and it's plugged in. And when you touch it, like the lightning bolts like move up and touch your hand and stuff. That's exactly would be the description of what it looked like. And I saw it and I didn't say anything. We got about a half a mile down the road, and my friend who was driving said, "Did you see that?" And I'm all about like not people thinking I'm crazy, and say, "What did you see?" And she's like, "I saw this big, huge blue, bright blue orb." She goes, "It's the only thing that I can think of." And we have like a lot of talk of orbs, uh, indigenously, like on the res and stuff, like a reservation. We've seen them. We've also seen fireballs and other things on the res, and most everybody assumes it's um, the, I can't think of the translation, but I would say that it's called like bad medicine. People doing bad medicine on other people, and different colored orbs or different colored fireballs mean different things and different messages and different things, like things like that. But anyway, after seeing that orb, we had both witnessed it. I ended up becoming more agoraphobic. So I was home quite a bit during the day, and then
What does that mean?
agoraphobic is like uh, I had anxiety every time I left the house. Like it was like I felt like I couldn't breathe. I just had severe anxiousness, and it would all alleviate once I left the house, or it would accelerate, become really bad, and then it would alleviate and become better the minute that I got home. So I became like I needed to be home all the time. So one night, my boyfriend is leaving, and he goes to work. He worked graveyard shift, and I'm laying there and I'm falling asleep, and it's just like that moment where you're sleeping, not quite fully asleep, but kind of awake, and I could feel like like someone had just reached over the bed. And the weird thing is I was sleeping upside down in bed, and I'll talk to you about that. And just remind me about that. Sleeping upside down on the bed, and I could feel fingers like rubbing my temples. And it felt really good at first. And I thought he'd come home and he was trying to slowly wake me up. And then they started to turn a little different. The pressure started to get a little bit too much. And then I started to feel like I was being pulled off the bed. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. And it was like my first time I actually had sleep paralysis, to the point where something physically was happening to me. So eventually I was able to fight whatever was off, wake up. I was like really freaked out, went back to sleep. The next night, I said, well, I was sleeping upside down on the bed. I was sleeping this way. I'm not going to sleep that way. So I moved the bed totally different direction, like feng shui. And then I had the animals come in, my dogs, sleep on the floor so that, they could protect me. Because what I'm assuming that I'm being attacked by like a dark spiritual entity, which is more common than not on the reservation than you think, and we don't talk about it. But I'm laying there, I'm falling asleep, and I just happen to fall asleep on my stomach, and I had the pillow kind of hanging on to it. And I used to sleep like that with teddy bear when I was a kid. It makes me feel good. So I'm laying on my stomach. All of a sudden, I can feel, as I'm just about to fall asleep, somebody is pushing down on my face, pushing down on the back of my head, and I'm going deeper into that pillow, and I can't breathe. And again, I can't move. I can't say anything. And the dogs are laying there. I can hear my dogs snoring. They're not doing anything. And I'm like, what the heck? So eventually I pull out of that. I'm scared. I had a second bedroom that I had set up for my daughter, and I slept in there. I was completely terrified at this point, and I didn't know what to say to my significant other, because he wasn't Native American. He didn't believe in anything of that nature. And anytime I tried to bring it up, he would make fun of it and make me feel like I shouldn't be saying anything. So I went to sleep in my room that night, and I woke up and I was on the ceiling, and I can move at this point, because I open my eyes and I see the ceiling. I put my hands up and I'm trying to push away from it, and it's almost like reverse gravity, like I'm doing push-ups on the ceiling. I'm completely freaked out, and I'm like screaming. I'm like, I'm home alone. It's light out. I can see that it's like beginning of dawn. So it was probably like, maybe this was summertime. So this was probably about 4 a.m. It was getting light out. So I get out of that, and I wake up, and I'm in the room. I'm like, I'm not sleeping in here again. So the next night I go to sleep in the living room, and I wake up, and I'm in this, it's me, and I can see my house, and there's this weird black mist around me, and I had, like, in the foyer, like in the very entryway, and I'm in the kitchen, and it was like an L shape. So like the kitchen, dining room, kitchen, living room. So you had to go around a corner to see the living room. And instead of walking, it was like I was just like, I'm here, I'm there. It was just like really fast, just like a weird movement, but not like walking, not like on my feet or
Yeah,
anything.
like not a natural, like an astral way of moving, almost a different way of
Right.
moving.
And I'm like, what is this black mist around me? And what am I doing in the house? Lights are off. And as soon as I turn that corner from the kitchen and look into the living room, I see my body lying on the couch, and I can see my back is turned. I'm kind of in a fetal position and I'm sleeping. And the minute I see my body, it's like something just completely ganks me, like a magnet, just, and I'm just like, I fly across the room. I still see like the mist around me. And the minute I hit my body, boom, I wake up and I'm on the couch, completely freaked, to the point where I'm like, I don't use drugs, but I'm going to start using drugs because I'm not going to sleep anymore because this is way too much for me to deal with at this point. And I had nobody to talk to because I isolated myself completely in my house for months. And then I had, you know, a handler who was definitely not on the same wavelength and had no idea what I was going through. And I was scared to say anything because I didn't know who to talk to or what to do. But this continued for many years. Not every day like that, though. The first 5 days were right, like immediately afterwards, were completely crazy.
So going to sleep for quite a while for you sounds like it was probably pretty traumatic. Not to, not trying to laugh, but it's just, so you said this was an ongoing thing. This wasn't an isolated incident. This happened multiple times.
Yes, it happened multiple times. I mean, even I would realize like it wasn't just something that would happen at night. Because when I moved to New York with my boyfriend, who I was with, moved to New York, and I started to have this when I was sleeping, and I was working in a factory and I was working graveyards. So I was sleeping during the day. And I could hear, I'd be barely almost asleep, and I could hear someone walk down the hallway, open the door to the bedroom, shut the door, walk in and sit down on the bed. And and I would be in the point where I'm thinking, that's my boyfriend, he can come home, you know, and I would ask him, did you come home at any time? He'd be like, no, I
You
work
know,
like
and
an
this
hour
is
away.
a really common thing actually too. I've heard about, you know, the whole an entity coming in your room and sitting on your bed with you. And I've also heard of people waking up and even seeing like an entity, you know, something that's not human. Um, and they won't react to it in fear. They'll react like, oh, like it's just normal, and it's kind of
Mhm.
odd. Did you end up ever seeing what the entity was that was sitting with you, what it looked like, or anything like that?
I Well, I'm an intuitive empath, so I get feelings of anything, you know. I can feel whatever's around, and it's almost like I get an image of what it looks like. So I was, when was this? I think I had come back and I was like in Minnesota, and I know I was at my mother's house and she was living on a reservation in the middle of Minnesota. And she's like, you know, the kids have like the other second bedroom and they're sleeping in the living room. She was like, the king size bed, you can sleep with me. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. You know, I hadn't slept with my mom in a long time, whatever. So I go to sleep, and I can always tell when it's gonna happen. I can feel like this weird, it's just like a weird feeling, like my head is like completely buzzing, like there's like a million bees in my head and it's completely buzzing and I can feel it. And I'm like, oh great, it's happening. And I like kind of open my eyes. Well, I don't really open my eyes. This is the weird thing. This is when I realized that I had this ability. I could see everything the way that it was with my eyes shut. And I've been able to like, you know, have to do this, and it's helped me to see a lot of these things that I can't see when my eyes are closed. So as I'm looking around the room, and it comes from right here, which is what I should probably say. It's not from here, it's from right here.
From your
And
third eye.
don't see it like in colors, like the way things look with our eyes. It's like I see everything the way that it's meant to be seen.
Yeah, that one, what was his name? Dan Winters, was that his name? Like, we were on a
Yes.
show. He was
Yeah.
talking about that. I had just got introduced to him so randomly on that show with you, but he seemed like a really interesting guy. And yeah, he was going on about that for quite a bit, and that was a big subject of the conversation, was the seeing without using your eyes thing. And it's a coveted ability for, a lot of reasons for these programs. So but yeah, so you were able to sense what the entity was, or?
Yeah, I was sleeping closest to the window, and my mother was sleeping close to, there was like a dresser there with a mirror, and there was, which I think is very significant, and there was a door. Um, but this thing was next to me. I was sleeping on my back, and I looked over. Well, I didn't look over, I couldn't move, but my eye could move, and I could see it. I could sense it. I was imaging it. It looked like, I think, my best description at the time, because I wasn't, fully awake at that point. I was still, under a lot of medications, and this was early 2000s. I said it looked like, if you ever see Scooby-Doo the cartoon, and in the very beginning when they're going through, I think it's some of the mid-season ones, and Scooby's in this file cabinet, and he jumps out, and there's this weird monster that looks like it's made of like energy.
Okay.
It was standing next to the bed, and it didn't really have like I couldn't see a definition of a neck or anything. It was just like a head, and then it was like this wide neck that was really wide, and then it had really big shoulders. But where the eyes were, like all this stuff that was going on its body wasn't happening there, and I could see through its eyes, and I could see my mother's curtains, and I could see it. It was standing
What
there,
did it
and it
make
was.
you feel that when you looked at it? What did you
I
feel?
immediately became frightened. I mean, I'm trying to think of how old I was, and when that would have been like 2000. I would have been maybe, 20s, early 20s, something like that. And I was like, scared. This is like, holy crap, I'd never seen anything like this before. Plenty of times I'd have my eyes shut, or I couldn't see, and I'd never seen anything before. I could feel it around me. But I saw it.
What do you
And
think that it wanted? What do you think it was there for?
it was there. It wasn't like I could feel like it wanted to do me harm in any way, but it was like it was almost like feeding off of me, but not like in a way that you and I eat food. Like it was like siphoning me. And I knew that I was in trouble. I knew that something, I had to wake my mother up no matter what. So for the first time, I was actually able to like make noises. And I was trying to say, Mom, Mom. And I just kept making, like weird grunty noises. And I'm like trying to like move my hand, and I'm able to move it a little bit, and I'm able to like kind of nudge her. And I'm like, and I'm making these weird noises. And she like rolls over and she starts talking to me. And she's like, wake up, and, she's calling you, babe, wake up. And finally, I like wake up, and I'm just like laying there, and I'm like completely shaking, and my hair is like wet, and the back of my neck is wet, because I'm scared. I'm like sweating. I'm just like, what's going on? So I explained my dream to her, and she's like, it's just a dream. Go back to it. But I started to see these things, and remember I told you to remind me about sleeping upside down, and I never could understand, when you sleep inverted on your bed, where your head and your feet. But this was just last year. A friend of mine who, she exited the community, but she had sent me an EMF meter for my birthday. And I started to, well, moving here in this particular apartment kind of set a lot of stuff off for me. But I was interested in knowing exactly what kind of electrical field was in the area where my head was when I laid down at night, and my bed was completely opposite as it is now. So it was like this way. So the head of my bed was against this wall in front of me. And there was like this huge, it would send the EMF meter, which was giving me numbers too, was sending it over 700. And that's very high. For having nothing plugged in there. I don't plug anything near my bed. I keep my phone plugged in either, across the room, if it has to be in the room, or else if I don't have to wake up, it's plugged up in somewhere else, outside of my room. I will unplug my router. I'll unplug my microwave if I feel like I'm being electronically stalked. So I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll flip around, I'll put my feet in that spot, and I'll sleep with my head down where my feet is. So I was feeling super clever for some reason, and I went to bed. And as I'm sleeping, I'm having this lucid dream. I'm in this house, and I just want to throw out that my mother and I, she's I always thought that she wasn't my mom ever since I was a little kid. So her and I are not close. There was a lot of issues there. She's a very toxic parent, and I don't talk to her anymore. So I'm having this dream and she's in it, which is very weird to me because I'm aware in the dream that her and I are not talking. So I'm like, completely, why is she here? But I'm being my nicest to be very polite to her. And we're getting ready to go to sleep. And so I have this house that I'm in that I've never been in before in my life. And it's just her and I, and there's an upstairs, and she keeps telling me there's a light going on up there. And I keep looking up there, and I'm trying to shut the light up. I shut the light off, and I can hear someone walking around. I open up a big walk-in closet, and I can hear somebody walking around on the second floor. And I realized, oh, maybe the house is just haunted. No big deal. Let's go to sleep. And so as I'm laying there, and I got the blankets pulled up around my face, and I'm just, it was kind of chilly. So I'm like pulling up, and that's weird. You shouldn't feel warm or cold in a dream, but I'm feeling chilly and tired, mind you. So I'm going to sleep, and I start dozing off in my dream. Very weird. So I'm sleeping. I'm just about ready to fall asleep. And my mother goes, "Who's that?" And I like pull the blankets down, and I see this little girl with blonde hair, and it's kind of dirty and kind of like matted and stringy. And I look, and I'm like, oh my God, this is my ex-boyfriend's daughter. Oh my God. I was like, what is she doing here? I'm like, oh, she's just using the bathroom. No big deal. So then I pull the blanket back over my head, and I fall asleep. And all of a sudden, there's something jumps on top of me in real time on my own bed, this bed that's behind me. I'm like, it jumps on top of me, and it has its arms on either side of my head. So, and the blanket I had pulled over my face, and I had this feeling like if I had ripped the blanket off, that thing would be like right here, and I can smell it. It smells like somebody who hasn't taken a shower or a bath in months. I can smell it. It smells very sour, very
almost sulfury. Is there like the sulfury
kind of? It was definitely, I could smell, and it made me think of like a very matchy type smell, like a match. And it's on top of me. And it totally, when it jumped on me, it startled me because I'm like dead asleep. I shouldn't use that word, but I was sleeping very soundly, and I'm having this lucid dream where I'm going to sleep in my dream. and this thing jumps on top of me. Well, it jumps on top of me here in my house. So I immediately I'm startled, and I'm like, wait a minute, don't be scared. So I immediately did not feel no fear. I wasn't afraid. And if anything, I know words are very powerful. And my parents were brought up in boarding school, so their Catholic upbringing, they tried to drag me through all of that too. I immediately started in on the Lord's Prayer. It's ingrained in me. If you're brought up Catholic, they must tattoo it on your eyes because
Did
I
it
never
work?
forget a word of it.
Did it help?
Yes. And
You know,
then after I got done,
I've had a similar situation happen to me. Sorry, continue.
as soon as I finished and I said amen, I addressed it. I said, get the fuck off me. I'm not fucking scared of you. And it was like someone just pulled it off of me. Like I didn't feel it crawl off the bed or dissipates and the blanket became lighter and lighter. No, I felt it rip off of me. And I jump up and I'm not a boxer or anything or martial arts or anything like that. I'm just all res girl, street fighter. So I immediately get into a fighting stance. I'm gonna, something's here. I remember how upset I was because I could still smell it probably about a half hour after I fully woke up. I could still smell it in my house. I opened the window and everything. And that was like last
Kind of hard to
April.
write it off as some sort of dream or hallucination when you can actually smell it for some time after it happened. And yeah, also I've had that happen to me with an experience where a being showed up in my room. So it makes it all that much more real and tangible. The scent.
The smell of it, it smelled so sour, like unwashed, sour, unclean. And then that smell afterwards that just stuck around, and it was like, yeah.
So you think this is just like an energy vampire sort of being?
I originally I started, well, once I was able to connect, because once it was on top of me, I was able to feel like that energy, and I realized that I live in a series of really big apartments in a cul-de-sac here, and there's like maybe 4, 5 apartments, and it's like a feeding frenzy ground over here. There's a water treatment plant not too far, so there's a lot of demons floating around over there that come
Can we
feed off of the energy.
Can we go into the water treatment facility? Why do you bring that up? Let's go into that. Let's sidetrack for a second and talk about that.
Yeah, that thing can permeate through the house, and I moved here and I was always kind of like, why was I placed here in this particular spot?
Do you think it had something to do with the water treatment facility nearby though? Like, can you elaborate on that?
Oh yeah, I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of clues that I never really figured out until I started like looking around when I moved here. But there's a water treatment plant. Over this way, there is the National Guard Center. FEMA is not too far from here. And then we have the supposedly defunct Air Force Base.
Supposedly,
but okay, one of the weird things, I moved into this place, my apartment is brick, and I just happened to have like a little thin mattress when I first moved in here, because I hadn't got my bed moved out of storage and moved in my apartment, so I'm sleeping on the floor, and anyway, I wake up and I have very distinct memories of getting up off the floor, because I was sleeping on the floor on a pallet. I got up, I walk over into that corner over there. You can't really see it. And I walk through the wall. And as I walk through the wall, I hear this really weird frequency. Like it's like, but it's almost like I can feel like these things moving around in me. And I realize that my molecular structure is completely changed due to that frequency. And I'm able to walk through that wall, that brick wall. And as soon as I get out, I'm like on third floor. There's no stairs, there's no patio outside my bedroom. And I will fly. I take off. Just not jump in the air and flap my arms, just gone. And I always wondered where I went. Well, I know where I went. But I was in this park and I'm flying around this park. And I was like, you know what? I want to know where I am because I want to find this place when I'm fully awake, because I know it's an actual place. So I swoop down and I look at a green street sign and it said 9.5. And I thought, well, that's weird. I'm going to remember that when I wake up, because 9.5 is pretty weird. And I'm like completely shaking right now. And so I wake up, and as I'm driving around my new neighborhood, I come to this park and I go, this is the park. This is it. So I go all the way completely around. And as I'm looking at the signs, what do you think I come across? 9.5. 9.5 Street. So I tend to fly around this place quite a bit. I remember very recently I left, and it was nighttime, it was winter, and I wanted to go straight down this particular street. So let's call it Main. It's not Main, but I'm just saying, let's call it Main. And so I wanted to fly completely down that street until I got to First Avenue. Let's just call it First Avenue. And when I got down there to First Avenue, I just kind of levitated and stayed there in that one spot for a second. And I was like, I need to get back, because I don't want my, partner to wake up and find me not there. And I don't want to upset them. So I flew back. But this time I'm like, I knew that I could go a lot faster if I pushed myself, but I wasn't really pushing myself because I could see the snow coming up, the wake and the force of me going at a velocity that I was going was making the snow come off of the trees. It was like spinning behind me. I could see that even though I was looking forward. And I knew that if I wanted to pick up my speed, that things would be out of my way. There was cars parked, there were trees, there were traffic lights and stuff, and I could see them being green. I could see the signs at the bank and stuff, and the grocery store as I flew past it. And I know that I've been having these dreams since I was like a very young girl, and they are real. I have actual proof of it by being able to find places where I've been.
How do you think the astral relates to our reality? Like, they're two different realities, but yet you can astral travel and interact with this reality. How do you think that all works?
That's a good question. It's something that I do think about quite a bit, because there are sometimes I will be laying down and I can feel like almost like a metallic buzzing in my head. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me what it was, but it would come, and I would feel this pain like right here in the back of my back. And this thing would be just like, I could feel, sometimes I could feel myself floating up, where my head was still where it was, but my feet were floating up. Or sometimes they would do something really stupid, like invert me upside down and yank me out that way. like I said, I've always talked about, you can tell who comes and takes you by how you're treated. If they just cause you so much pain and so much trauma, they're not good people. But I've had my star family. I remember I went to bed one night and I was so completely just, it was during lockdown and I was so freaking tired of it. Hadn't seen anybody in my family for a long time, my friends. And I was like, I hate this place. I hate it here. I don't know why I'm doing this. I want to go home. And I was talking to my star family and I'm like, just come get me. Just, I can't do this. So anyway, that night, I remember I had a TV in my room and I was watching something really dumb like Jerry Springer or something. And it was on and it was a very specific show that they were talking about. And I fell asleep. And I started to feel like this amazing feeling, like just all this love and just unconditional just acceptance, and I immediately knew that my star family was there and they were coming to collect me. And I was so excited. I was turned on my side and I like turned on my back and I was like, let's go, I mean, and it was like a weird, like I could see like this kaleidoscope, like if you ever see a kaleidoscope when you're little, and they were like platinum and gold and silver. And it was like these beautiful colors and it was like turning and everything was changing shape. And I was just like in awe of how beautiful, and I could feel the colors and they were like showing me love. It was really weird. So then it like all of a sudden, bam, I just get pulled through that tunnel, that kaleidoscope, and I'm gone. And all of a sudden I wake up. And I was just like so bummed out because I was like, I thought that, I guess I misunderstood. I thought I was going and not coming back, but they returned me. And I looked over at what I was watching on TV and it was still the same weird Jerry Springer show. It was a very unusual title. And so I knew that I hadn't been gone very long, but they took me and returned me. But that has kept me going, that feeling of being with them and that love. Just, it was almost like they knew that I was struggling, that I was like really questioning my purpose here and why I'm here and why I should remain here. And it was like they came got me. It was like they showed me, they reminded me, and they sent me back. But it was like I have no recollection of anything past the kaleidoscope of being taken and being returned. I have no memory of it. And it sucks, but it was like I have a feeling of it, in my heart. It was like this huge reunion, and it was just the love. And I was so excited when I woke up. Like I was like so excited at that moment when I knew they were there, and I kept that feeling when I woke up, and I still think about it. And I was like, at the point where you get so pulled down, they know, they watch us, I mean, especially us that are not from here and that incarnated here in these bodies. We'll know exactly who they are, without even seeing them, we'll know.
Do you know who your star family is, or is it, could you maybe go into that a bit more?
It was really weird. It was like when I had my job, and then when everybody lost their jobs that one year during that stupid thing, when everybody had to stay home, somebody gave me like the name of this woman that on like Etsy or something that does like will do astrology readings, and I was like really wanting to know where I was from. I really wanted to know. So she didn't ask for a whole lot of money, and I sent her my information, and I got back, and it said that I was incarnated 4 times from Arcturus, 4 times from Sirius, and 1 time from Alpha Centauri, and 1 time from Lyra. So yeah, that definitely am a starseed. Definitely have been incarnated, came here, and I have no idea why But most of us, I don't know about the people that got trapped here, what's going on. I know that they keep us trapped here with with your belief. Once you buy into that belief system, you're stuck here.
Yeah, I got left here. I don't think that I'm here intentionally. A lot of people talk about signing the contracts, or you signed up for this. I'm always really skeptical of that, but I don't tell people what's true or what's not. As far as what I know, I do know that I've signed contracts and things like that, but I also understand that you can pretty easily coerce somebody into signing a contract that goes against their best interest if they're in a desperate enough situation. And I think that's what they do a lot of times, is they force us into pretty desperate scenarios in order to get us to sign contracts that we don't even remember signing once we come back. But I think that is something that's going on that I'm still trying to understand a little bit better. But the soul contract thing. But yeah, I would say that for some of us, it's a responsibility we came here that we took on. For some of us, it's not that at all. And then for some of us, it's probably a little bit of both. It's like we might not have decided to be here, but if we're going to be here, then we might as well try to help. I feel like I'm in that arena where I didn't necessarily decide to be here, but since I am here, I might as well try to help move things along in a positive manner. And I do feel like I'm on the side of humanity gaining its own sovereignty and free will, which is, maybe not an easy path, but that is the path that I think we need to go down. Just naturally, I think it just needs to happen. But I digress. So you've had quite a lot of experiences with the astral realm, and I know that a lot of the people that get taken for these programs, there are missions that we do in the astral realm, which is not to be confused with the fact that there are missions that we do that are 100% in 3D real reality that we're inhabiting now. But there are missions that we undergo that, are basically in the dream realm. Would you agree with that? And would you maybe want to contribute to that, vein of thought?
I'm more apt to agree with you. I mean, I've had so many like actual memories of being in like weird barracks or weird classrooms. I remember there was this one memory that I had where it was almost like King of the Hill, but it was like it was almost
Love
like a
that show.
flagpole. It was like a flagpole, and on the top was almost like kind of like a seated area where you could sit, and we had to be able to jump up there and sit on that seat, and then everybody else would have to like get up there and try to usurp you from your position because it was King of the Hill. But when the weight of a second person would get on there, it would bend. So it would make it a little bit rough. But I remember it just took me one jump to get up on top of that. And
So do you think that was in the astral, or could that potentially be? This is where it gets confusing, because that sounds like it could also just be a memory of one of your lives in the programs. So it is really hard to discern sometimes, and I always have that problem where I'll have what I think is dreams about stuff that has to do with space or the programs, whatever. But I think it's dreams, because it's not like I don't dream. Everybody dreams. And then it takes me a while to figure out, okay, that wasn't a dream. That was like 100% real, right?
Okay, so I'll tell you something that you're going to be like, that's not normal. And I've been doing this for a while, but every night I'll go into whatever, a dream, and I'm in the same area. Like I'll be there for weeks every night. And it's almost like I'm doing recon work, because it's like I'm going through building and then moving to the next building and then moving to the next building. And I'm like going through that whole building, going through every door, going into every room. And then I know like being in like showers or locker rooms, and I'm going all the way down, looking through every single shower stall. And then I'll come out of the building and I'll look and I'll be like, oh, there's a boulevard, you know, that's very unusual to remember or something like that. And I'm like, I was over on that side last night. And I can tell you, I can probably draw you pictures of the place that I was, but I'm like, it's almost like, to me, it's almost like kind of like a Native American reservation to me, because like the houses are like little tract houses. There's one big huge casino that sits kind of back behind the community a little bit, like you
Yeah.
highway and stuff, and then there's like a casino, and then in the back behind the casino there's like a weird lake, and there's like an old logging cabin type place. I've hidden there from a couple of assassins that were going to try and kill me, and I hid in that logging place, and I like laid down in the water until my nose was just sticking out, and they were like on top of the roof and looking for me, and I'm like, okay, if I just lay here, they won't find me. So yeah, it's really strange, but I mean, I don't know if that's normal to be in the same dream for weeks on end. Like 3 weeks, I think, is the longest that I've been in.
I mean, it's definitely, it's not unheard of, and you're not the only person that experiences it, but I think there's something behind it, and I think that it's unfortunate that we live in a society.
Arkeem. What is going
Um,
Wow, that was weird. I couldn't hear you for like a minute.
really?
Yeah, it was like your mic was muted. I was like, in fact, it did show up kind of red with a line through it, and now I can hear you. I was like trying to get your attention. I'm like, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I kind of like will look off into the distance sometimes when I talk, or when I'm listening to, even so.
You might have to edit that part out. That was weird. But start over because I missed that.
What was I talking about? I was talking about
I couldn't tell you because I couldn't hear you.
it had to do with astral travel, and I don't know, I guess just trying to discern like what it means, and the fact that it's not some ambiguous thing that means nothing. Your dreams mean something. Well, even if you're going to go down the path of like normie mentality, like, or normal, you know, science, your psyche, your thoughts, your feelings, things inside you manifest in the astral, and you show yourself to yourself in a lot of situations in dreams. And I think regardless of, well, you know, it gets confusing with what about it is real and what it is not, because but it's not subjective that it's real. It's not something you can be like, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think that, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I think that it is real, and I think that, I don't know, I just feel like it's beneficial to look at it more seriously, the astral sort of thing, because, you know, I know there are a lot of people in this community where they really don't even want to hear that word. They don't want to talk about that word because they feel like it takes away from the impact of the fact that there are people who are getting taken in 3D here and now, not astral, for these programs, and they don't want people to get confused and think that they're the same thing. And I understand where people are coming from with that, but the reality is that both sides of the coin are important, and the astral part of things is definitely important. And yeah, I really appreciate you bringing it up, and I think it's the first time that it's been talked about on this channel, is that whole aspect of things. And yeah, really interesting stuff too when you're talking about the energy vampire creature that was trying to get on you, and you revoked it by saying like the Lord's Prayer. Because I had a similar situation where there was an energy vampire being demon sucking me out of my body, and I couldn't get it to stop, and I was freaking out, and I finally said, you know, in Jesus's name, or whatever, something similar to what you did, and it left me alone. It went away right away. uh, what do you think what do you think's going on there with that, like the being able to use Jesus's name or the Lord's Prayer or whatever to get these beings to leave you alone?
Truthfully, words have power, and that's one thing that we have yet to even touch base on anybody.
Yeah.
There are ways that you can place words or numbers in a certain sequence that can alleviate pain, or lower your heart rate.
We're actually doing a whole show on that in the near future with this guy from the UK called Numbers Don't Lie. He has a channel, very interesting stuff. But yeah, that's 100% important. In fact, important enough to do a whole show on. But yeah, words and numbers have incantation powers. Like they have abilities to bring about things and move things in ways that we aren't really understanding yet. And also the English language is like this bastardized, messed up language to subvert the power of language and take it from us, which is something that people don't understand. So I think that it's good to know, like, probably your native language and stuff like that. I would say that they're more light language than the language we're using now, which is, English, this bastardized language. But yeah, words and numbers have this enormous power behind them. The way you sequence them, and the way you place them, and when you place them, and all that stuff. It's something that it's a lot to look into, because it's really hard to wrap your mind around, but it's such an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think there was someone had given me a book, and it was about the lost book of Inky. And I was reading the very beginning of it, and one of the names, and I think it was Inky and Enlil's sister's name, I like totally wigged out, because it looks like an Ojibwe word to me. And that's where I'm enrolled. It looks like an actual Ojibwe word. And like I was going to take it to somebody and have them see if they could translate it. But oh gosh, I was going to say something, I just totally forgot it. But
the Ojibwe word.
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure it was their sister's name or their aunt's name or something, because they went really back into all the way to forefathers and fathers' names and mothers' names and stuff. And I was kind of reading through them. I was like, wow, that's crazy. That looks exactly like something that would say that I would learn, in Ojibwe class, because now on the reservation, it's mandatory that any school that's on any Indian land, they have to teach their native language to the students. So my kids actually know more Ojibwe than I do, because they had to go through the classes and stuff.
Yeah, I imagine it's probably more of a light language, more of a. It's hard for me to explain it, because even I am still trying to understand it, but also my alters understand it, and they're inside me, so it's like at the tip of my tongue. But like, words have flavors and meanings, and there's a universal light language that has to do with like math, and like basically like there's just there's so much power behind these words, and they've taken words that mean things and then made them mean other things, but yet they still mean those ancient things. And it's to invert or sabotage the word. It's really hard to explain, but yeah, there's a lot of power in words. What makes you think that like Jesus, what makes you think that this being, the word of this being, where do you think its power comes from?
His power comes from us, from all of us. And they're, they instilled this belief system for a self of like control over the populace of believers and people. But what they didn't understand is they didn't take into consideration that people were going to use these psalms, these prayers, and that there was going to be given power to it. And Yeshua, Joshua, they call him Jesus Christ. He was an actual person. He
Yeah,
was a person like you or I, and he
yeah,
was also half Terran, half Starseed, just
yep,
like we are. And he was able to do what? Heal. I know.
yeah. I'm pretty sure.
I know. How many healers do I know? I can heal. I mean, we.
Quite a few people in this
It's not that.
community. Quite a few people in this community are descendants of Jesus Christ. He had kids.
Yeah, I have the actual M on my hand too for the Magdalene line. It's really and my brother too, my half brother. They created us for this type of work. They have everything on file. It's almost like a stock, like they just can go back and restock this DNA, and they use it. And at the very end, when hopefully when everything comes out to light and we're able to find the people that are from the same bloodline, that are our families, because they kept us. Like, I remember they introduced my brother to me, and I remember him. He was 5 and I was 10, and I took care of him, and he was so traumatized that he didn't speak. He like made little noises and stuff. And then I remember just like caring for him and taking care of him, and then he was gone. And I didn't find him again until probably about 4 years ago. They wiped like every memory of him, and it was almost like I had to go back and like remember what my heart felt like when I was around him, and to know
Wow.
that when he found me, and he was like, "You're my sister." And my daughter even like saw our picture or his picture, and she like slapped the phone out of my hand, and she's like, "Don't ever show me that. This is so freaky. You guys look too much alike." I think they're going to find out exactly how we are all related to each other. But they take a significant
Yeah,
amount of people in the program, mind you, and then how
we're
else do
doing
you get
that.
more people?
We're
You
doing
split
that.
them, create them.
There's people that are doing DNA tests and comparing them and stuff. So it's already starting to happen. I really want to get my DNA test done. It's just a money thing mostly for me, but like, because I already got a test, and then I sent it in, and there was some sort of issue or mistake, and I didn't get a refund either. And it's just like, I'm just annoyed by the fact that I have to do it again. But it is
Oh, you must
important.
have some really good DNA then, if they were like making all kinds of crazy excuses on why they can't give that to you.
Well,
Um,
yeah, what it was is I was supposed to send this code in, and then they activate it, but like I didn't really read the box. I just saw that it already had my name, my information on it, and I just put my spit in it or whatever, and I didn't think anything of it. And then after I sent it, I found out that like there's some step I was supposed to do. It was really silly, and when I tried to like get a refund, I didn't get one. But like yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping. I keep on putting it off, but I really do have to do that because I feel like I am related to people in these programs. I've had similar situations where I found people that I think I'm related to, and I would really like to see what a DNA test says. And also with the I believe that I guess it's kind of irrelevant, but it's, for me, it's important. I believe I'm a Rothschild. I believe that I'm a descendant of the Rothschilds. That's somewhere in my bloodline. And I want to see validation of that. I want to see the proof that I am. I mean, that would make me feel really good because that's in my memories. And if I were to get proof of that on a certificate that matches my DNA to them, I would feel a lot better about that being a memory. Not that I'm proud to be a Rothschild. They've done some really bad things, but it'd just be
Yeah.
good to know my past and where I come from. And yeah, I believe that I've got that going on in my blood, and I don't know. I just think it's important for everybody in this community to look into where they come from, because it, and I'm, obviously I should be doing it. I'm a hypocrite. But if you have the means to do it, it's fairly simple to do, and I recommend people watching, if you think of these in these programs, maybe look into your ancestry, because you can learn a lot. And even if you're not in these programs, it's just something that's just, and there's an incredible power behind learning about your ancestors and where you come from and your genetic past. It's a powerful thing.
I am probably the most hesitant person when it comes to that. I'm not saying I'm paranoid or anything. It's like my cultural upbringing. But if I remember I had back surgery, because I've had like 4 back surgeries to repair the damage from, the supposed mission I went on, but it was like a dream, but it wasn't a dream. And I got shot in the back. So I've had 4 back surgeries. I don't know. To me, it just doesn't, your DNA is like, your DNA remembers. It's like a complete, like a supercomputer. Like you can delete and erase stuff off of there. It's always going to be there, So, I mean, a lot of, they talk about generational trauma, and I never understood that terminology until I actually looked into it and realized that can be encoded on your DNA, that your great grandchildren can feel. And people are like, what is wrong with them?
I agree with that to an extent, but I also okay, like for me, like if they were doing their job correctly, the people that are handling you and you're doing work for, you would not be having experiences bleeding over into the here and now like that. There was some sort of, I wish I could remember it drives me insane, but when I was in Nakwaffen, and if people got put back or something like that, and there's an injury that they had in space, that they wake up and they have it in the here and now or whatever, if there's some sort of sign, we had a term for it, and it was like kind of a joke to us, but it was like the equivalent of like poor workmanship or sloppy hand craftsmanship, sloppy work, like, but in German. And I think that not every time you have something happen to you, it's going to translate over and you're gonna have a physical mark on your body or whatever. Because I feel like if that were true, we'd be battered to hell because we were put through so much. In fact, I know somebody in these programs who I don't even know if he's aware. He lives in the same town as me, and I remember him from Mars Defense Force. We would send him into spider nests to explode himself over and over. He literally volunteered to go in there with a grenade and explode the whole nest, and then we'd find a finger or whatever we could from him, and we'd regen him. But like, I doubt that in the here and now he experiences the effects that maybe he does. But the thing is I'm not trying to say it doesn't happen. It does happen, but they try their best to prevent you from like having stuff like that happen. And I've also noticed that they can intentionally, like if you're authors that are out there doing stuff, if they're not obeying and not doing a good enough job, they can intentionally make it so your cover author is injured or has health problems to punish you for not doing a good enough job out there. So there's all these different things going. It's like a lot of things. It's not as simple as black and white. But yeah, sometimes I'm not saying that it didn't happen to you, because it did happen to you. You have a physical effect in your life from something that happened to you out there. I'm just saying that it was probably something really intense and something that just for whatever reason it did imprint on your psyche in such a way to where it bled over into this life, or maybe they intentionally, I don't know, I don't understand it, but I do know that like a lot of the times when something happens, it takes a lot to realize it. Like you might even realize it physically or emotionally or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily hit you right away. They're like, oh, this is from the programs. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to go on a rant there or sidetrack you or whatever or interrupt you, but I feel like it is important to mention that not every single thing we experience out there becomes a physical ailment in the here and now, but it does happen, and it is a really important piece of evidence because you're not the only person that has woken up and had physical effects from stuff that's happened out there.
Yeah, I had this one recall. I got up one morning and I used to work till like 2, 3 in the mornings. And I got home, went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning and I threw the blankets back. And as I'm just about to hop out of bed, I pull my feet forward and it feels like I have like cookie crumbs or something in the bottom of the bed. And I look down and there's dirt, there's twigs, there's pine needles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what in the actual F? Because
Yeah.
once I'm in bed, I'm in bed. I'm not a sleepwalker.
Sloppy craftsmanship, poor work, basically, is what I have to say to that. I need to remember what that term is because they say it specifically, and sometimes they'll laugh about it. Like, I think it's funny. Like, you know, like, I can't believe you did that. This guy's going to wonder what the fuck, you know, poor work. And then they'll laugh about it or whatever. But yeah, like,
yeah,
Bud
and
Hopkins,
they try to make it they kind of fuzz it up a little bit so that the memory is kind of fuzzy. So then you're like,
oh, did I go outside or something? You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
You know, maybe I got up in the middle of the night, you know, and
Bud Hopkins did research on people, and like he's one of the OG UFO researcher guys, right, from like 20, 30 years, 40 years ago. And he had cases of like people where there was a woman who got abducted by the Zeta Reticuli Grays or whatever. They're doing the genetic experiments or whatever. But she got put back. It was this Japanese woman, and she got put back with a shirt, and it was from Colorado. It might be the opposite. It was a woman from Colorado with a Japanese shirt, but either way, it happened. And she showed him the shirt. She brought it, you know, like, this is not my shirt. Like, and people, stuff like this happens. It's anomalies. They try to make it not happen. They do their best to make it so when they put you back, you don't even know anything happened to you. But yeah, weird shit happens. Why are there leaves and twigs in my bed? Why is there, you know what I mean? Why does my room smell funky? Like you know, you wake up and you don't know why you're up, and your room smells really fucking weird. And it's because there was an alien in your room talking to you, and you didn't just wake up. You know what I mean?
I think that's what it was. I totally forgot. So this was like last year, and where was I? No, I was still at the other apartment. So this was probably a couple of years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. I fell asleep upside down on the bed again. Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah.
And I could never understand why all this weird stuff happens to me while I'm upside down on the bed. But as I'm laying there sleeping, and I had like a Jack and Jill bedroom. So like there was another bedroom, but there was a bathroom between the 2 bedrooms, and it was open, so you could look into it. I'm laying there and again, looking through my third eye, I see movement. And I look over, and there's like a little, I think he's kind of like a little brownish gray, maybe. He's not, you know, it's hard to tell because I don't see colors the way everybody else sees colors with my third eye. So I see him, he's behind, he's in the bathroom, and he's looking at me. And I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and then all of a sudden he happens to realize that I can see him because he's listening to me. and so he does the funniest thing when someone gets startled, they back up, right? He kind of backed up, but the way he did it was kind of like his body moved a little weird. And I was like, sucker, I seen you. I seen you. You can't hide from me. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I look my bedroom door. I'm kind of facing my door. My head is, and I see another kind of movement. I look up, and he's got his friend. Same. They look exactly the same, and they're peeking at me. And he seen me too. And the first thing he did was move back. And I'm just like, you guys, I totally see you. And they were just like, oh, she sees us. You know, how does she see us? And it was like, you know, my eyes are closed, but I can still see you. Um, and I think that was what my brother said too. He's like, they used to use me down like to find things like in the sewer, certain types of different species that would run and would go into these areas where you know you couldn't be. But I was going to tell you about this one thing that was so real to me. It had to have been something, and I don't know what it is, but it's very significant. I want to tell it to you because I want your opinion on it, and then see if maybe it can spark some other things with anybody else. But I this is before my parents were still together, so they got divorced when I was 10. I get up, it's like a Saturday. Both my parents are home and it's morning. I get up, I walk out of my room, and I'm walking. I was going to go to the bathroom, but I can hear my parents talking. And so I just kept walking past the bathroom, and I can see the sun is in the room and it's really bright. My mom has the curtains open and everything. And I turn, and there's like kind of like a long counter in the kitchen, and my dad is kind of like leaned over, and he's complaining. I can hear him talking about back pain. And my mother's like, where? Right here? And she's like running her fingers over his back really softly. And all of a sudden, this weird door opens up in his back. And this little vial, it was probably about maybe about this big and about that round. And it had green, it almost looked like gas. It could have been plasma. It could have been something very unusual, but I'm like still walking, and I'm like looking, going, holy, I mean, I didn't have the colorful language that I do now when I was only like 8 or 9, but I'm seeing this. His back is open. There's something sticking out of his back. My dad is what? A cyborg, a robot? What is my dad? I'm freaking out here. And the minute that it leaves his body, he's like kind of leaning over in pain, and all of a sudden he just goes, whoa. And he looks right at me, and I'm just like, whoa. And I can read everything in that look. He's going to kill me. So we like live in a split level home, and I'm like still kind of walking. So I make a run for the stairs, and you can access the stairs and see, right from the dining room, and go straight down. And then it kind of goes about 8 steps, landing, goes down the other way, 8 steps again. And I like jump from the top of the stairs, go down, drop 8 steps, because I'm terrified he's gonna kill me. I see it, I feel it with every fiber of my being. My dad is going to kill me. And I somehow end up down in the basement. And I'm like, I'm trapped down here. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do now? How am I going to get out of here? There's no door. I have to pass him to get out that door. And I can hear him charging down the stairs. And then it's almost like it stops. And I open my eyes, and it's almost like Groundhog Day, like exactly the same thing, except for this time I get up and my parents are in the kitchen, and he's not leaning over the thing with back problems or anything. But yeah, I swear on my honor that this actually happened, and they stopped it, threw me back in bed, and we did a restart on it, whatever it was, because they were like, he can't kill her. Something happened. Whatever that stuff was in his back kept him from attacking me.
That's very strange, but
It is.
I believe you. I mean, I have no choice but to believe you, because I understand how weird these programs are and what we're experiencing is, and the fact that we are in a supercomputer anyway, and none of this is even actually real. So who's to fucking say that can't happen? Anyway,
Actually, I had received like this weird information from one of my guides, and they said that some of the super soldiers are in stasis pods, and some are on the moon and some are on Mars. And whatever we're in now are like these weird little avatar bodies, these little human avatar bodies.
Yeah, it checks out. I've heard that from other people as well.
Yeah, and
Because they don't want, the thing is that you're a copy, because if the original kills itself, then all of your alters, I think, die too. I'm not saying that's fact, don't quote me on that, everybody, but I'm pretty sure that they usually are going to keep your original locked up somewhere under lock and key, basically, so that if you basically, so they have you, so that if whatever happens, they have the original and they can always make copies of the original. So
yeah, it was really weird because very soon after I had mentioned this theory that I have, my significant other, my partner, mentioned that he had woke up and there was a man like looking in on him, and he was like, I was like, could barely like open my eyes. He's like, and when I kind of opened them, I looked at him and he was like looking in on me. And he was like wearing like weird like like a weird one piece, like a onesie, like a suit. And but then he had a lab coat over it. And he said he described him what he had. He had like a mustache and like little round glasses. And he's like, he just kind of like looked at he said, and then I just like closed my eyes and it's gone again. So I'm more apt to believe too, kind of putting all the pieces together, that you know we don't have to worry too much about whether we are in a matrix at this point.
yeah, I mean, I don't claim to have all the answers there, but I mean, from what I remember from Montauk is we essentially hacked reality like a computer. And what I always say to people when they ask me, my opinion on whether we're living in a simulation or not, whether we're living in a computer program, is whether it's real or like it's a simulation, it operates like a computer program. It has the same principles. And us creating computers is like those same principles fractaling out and occurring again in nature, basically through us. Like, so, and that's what AI is, and it becoming God or thinking it's God or trying to subvert God, which I believe is Satan, is Lucifer. But I also don't claim to have all the answers. These are just the conclusions that I've come to through the information that I have at my disposal. What are your opinions on AI? You guys have is there any Native American opinion on that? Like as far as your tribe or anything like that? Is there any stories or parables or anything that makes you think of AI?
I think there was just that one, and I told you that story on our part one, where this female medicine woman had pulled what she thought was like something that was bothering someone's joint, like arthritis, out, like tennis elbow or arthritis, pulled it out and then threw it down the ground, and it was like moving, but it was like weird, like black pudding. She said it was like black, it's black, and it was moving on its own, and then it just kind of sucked into the earth, just into the ground, just like, she's like, which is weird because you pour water into the ground and that can be sucked in, pour this thing was like almost like a weird gel consistency. You'd think that it wouldn't be able to be sucked into. So it was a very odd thing, but that's the only thing. And it was kind of a head scratcher. I had spoken with her brother and was able to tell, I was like, I know exactly what that is. And when I told him what it was, he's like, you need to talk to her, and tell her what it is. I never got to, but yeah, I wanted to be able to talk to a lot of the medicine men and women and tell them that there's going to be a lot of that now, after those series of strange things that they put in people.
Yeah, it's I found it very hard to believe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, black goo, nanotechnology, hacking our DNA, all that. It just sounds so fucking crazy. You sound like you're bananas when you talk about it, but that's the world we live in. The world we live in is fucking bananas, to the point where if you just talk about it just factually, like it how it is, you sound like a crazy person to people. But
Actually
it's
had this memory of this creature. I don't know if you remember anything, but it would look like something like what a vampire, like the old vampire, the ones that they had in the very beginning when they first came out with the movies. You know, they got the no hair and the big ears.
yeah.
Something out of like 28, what is it, 28 Days of Night or something like that. I think that's the closest I've seen to something that I saw. But I was in this club and it was almost like a weird old factory. And there was this weird green gas that was being seeped in because they were trying to turn people. And I was bringing them on through the underground levels. We were going down under the levels of the club and coming up, and I had a whole bunch of people behind me. We turned the corner and there was this hallway that would get us access to the other building so we could get out through there. And there was their leader and he's standing there. And the first thing I do is I use my abilities and I can just, with one movement of my hand, froze him. He couldn't move. He was just stuck in that position. And I told everybody, run around him, go, 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 go. And everybody kind of was like against the wall. They didn't want to get anywhere near him. And he was telling me, he's like, I'm going to find you. And when I find you, I'm going to kill you. And it was like, heard that, whatever.
Oof.
Yeah, it was very, it was definitely not this planet, but there were humans there. But like everything was built underground. It's weird.
Yeah, that's very normal, because the surface of a planet is solar flares can happen, a hurricane can happen, tornadoes,
If you're by the
earthquakes.
asteroid belt, asteroids can happen.
Yeah, so it's just like it's so much safer to just have a civilization underneath the ground. And having a planet where the people can live on the surface is great. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing, but it also, your life's precarious. Like a natural disaster could happen and your house is gone. I mean, it's probably not going to happen, but also, like, oh, for right now, there's wildfires going on, and it's dangerous for certain people to go outside and do physical activity where I live right now. So it's just like the surface has all these things that, where down when you're living underground, it's just it's hard to imagine as a surface dweller, like, really, you can live a whole life underground and whole civilizations and societies and everything else. And yes, yeah, big time. Like, there's a lot of that going on all across the galaxy, because, and that's it's safest, and you're not going to have some sort of event or catastrophe come along and then you got to start all over. Like, so that's why they do it. And a lot of these underground facilities, they do a pretty good job of making it nice and making it feel sort of like the surface. So not every facility, it depends on whether it's a military installation, what its purpose is. If it's a civilian installation, though, if they want civilians living there, they tend to try to make it nice. But yeah, it's a privilege to live on the surface of a planet, because it's beautiful to watch sunsets and sunrises, and to be able to visit bodies of water and forests and just all that. It's really wonderful. Not to say that there isn't any nature or anything cool when there's underground societies, but you know, um, yeah, it's just definitely, like I said, normal. It sounds crazy when you're saying it, like, yeah, this whole civilization's underground, but really it isn't when you think about it. It's a smart thing to do, to have your civilization be entirely underground. It's playing it safe, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Longevity, because I mean, think about it, the flood and the natural disasters. I think there's been 5 or 6 or 7, don't quote me on that, but there's been these natural disasters throughout Earth's history where everything has to start all over again after that. So that's just like proof that, like, yeah, life on the surface is precarious. If you want to have a civilization that's just going along and isn't going to drop off and then have to come back up again, living underground is a better option.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. What was I gonna say now? Hmm. So besides, I'm asking because I know we had a discussion a couple days ago about abilities, and I had somebody had asked me, they're like, have you ever noticed any of your abilities, kind of accidentally coming out? And I said, I do recall, I think it was right around the time that I was in the Phoenix in 97 when the Phoenix light was going on. My father had like this big, huge oak armoire that was in one of the bedrooms, and I used it for the kids as clothes. That sucker was huge. And my son, he and I had talked about it very recently, and he said, I remember this. He said, I had some things hanging on it, and I was swinging from one bed to the next bed. He goes, and as I was swinging this way, the armoire fell. And he goes, and my daughter, his sister, was underneath it. And I heard the big crash, and my son come flying out of the room. And I went tearing in there, and I seen it, and I picked it up with one hand. I picked it up and I slammed it against the wall. And the doors, it had doors inside of it, and they opened up just at the right moment. And my daughter was like underneath there. That's the one that I told you that didn't speak, and that's in the program and has a clone that one of the other whistleblowers remembers seeing her on a ship. So anyway, so I like pick her up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm holding on to her and I'm shaking and stuff. And my dad goes, you pick that up. And he goes, I had 3-4 movers. It took 3 or 4 guys to like carry that in there. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, I was like, it was probably adrenaline, and I chalked it up to adrenaline. But I don't know, there's just been so many weird things that have happened in my life. I know.
Yeah, our abilities do manifest, people. It's just we don't have
It is very
control of them.
very odd. It happens at very unusual times. Sometimes it happens where it could be something that safety precaution, where you could get hurt. I
Life or death
remember when,
scenarios,
right,
that's where it comes out.
I was fist fighting with my sister once. Native girls tend to fight with their siblings. And I ran up the stairs at her because I was throwing gourds at her brand new car, trying to get her to come out and fight me, because she slammed the door, locked me out. And so she opened up the door, and I was like, great. So I start running up the stairs at her. And my sister is like bigger than I am. She's like about 5'9.5", 5'10". I'm only 5'6", and then a little bit shorter than that now because of the operation on my spine. But I ran up the steps at her. And she's a big woman, and she kicked me. I think it was like right here, because I had this bruise, the size 9 bruise on my chest. She kicked me as I was running up the stairs at her. Now, most people would just, at that momentum, would start to just fall back and just fall down the stairs and, either break their neck or a couple of this in their back of vertebrae. No, I remember twisting, like, I started going this way, and I started twisting my body. And when I twisted my body, I twisted. So all of a sudden I was 180. So she was behind me. So when I fell down the stairs, I don't remember touching any of the stairs or anything. I just remember twisting my body. And when I landed, I joke about it. I joked about it at the time. I said it was like a superhero stairs. I said, I will never be able to do this again, ever. But stairs and me are just, that's my nemesis. I usually fall down the stairs And I don't know how I have not broken my neck. I usually end up going down with my knees bent like behind me, like sledding, and just going down. Yeah, so embarrassing. But yeah, just oh, it was another one too. Very recently, my daughter, I said I said, I need my wallet. And I don't want to walk up the 3 flights of stairs. Just throw it off the balcony. And I had some stuff in my arms, in my purse, and drink and other stuff in my hand. And she's like, throws it off the balcony. I'm not not a sporty person. I'm more of a book person. But my arm shot out, and I wasn't even looking. I was looking at her, and my arm shot out, and all of a sudden I felt my wallet in my hand. I don't know how I did that, but there's no way I could ever repeat that. But to catch a wallet, that's, you're not even looking at where it is, and just my arm just flew out, caught it, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's an example of your abilities manifesting in the here and now, and it's not unheard of. You also sent some stuff about lights.
Lights.
Yeah, like you were turning lights off or lights were going out.
Oh yeah. At work we had like heat lamps for some of the food, and we weren't expecting truck until the next day, and they said, this is, I was just looking at it. That's all I was doing, was just looking at it, and it just turned off, and I was like, wait, I didn't, oh, what's going on? You know, I was like, is someone messing with this? And then I seen the little click, and I'm clicking it. And finally I called my kitchen manager, and I'm like, this light just went off. And he's like, hold on. He goes in the back and he goes, I only have this one heat lamp left until tomorrow. He's like, can you stop messing around with stuff, please? We need this. And it was like, I didn't even do anything. I swear to God, I didn't even touch it. It went off. And it's been like, I broke my daughter's computer after I fixed it. I'm just, no.
So yeah,
What are some of the things that affect you?
I, to be honest with you, I don't have that much stuff happen to me, but I let's think here. To be honest with you, I can't think of any examples of my abilities manifesting other than when I was younger, I would predict the future a lot, which is one of the reasons why they took me for the programs, because I had that ability to be able to see forward or backward in time and stuff. But yeah, I guess when I was growing up, I saw all sorts of stuff and used my abilities, and chalked it up as, when I grew up, as just being a kid. But looking back, there's some heavy truth to a lot of the stuff that we were messing around with. It's like the stuff like light as a feather, stiff as a board, things like that kids do. It's kind of wild when you think about it, when you look back. I mean, I never actually saw anyone make that work, but I've heard that people they do this, these kids are just doing magic for fun, and it works sometimes. So that's interesting. But I don't have the best, I don't have too great of examples. Maybe it's just not coming to me right now, but I haven't had that happen. I do know, like, for instance, I've seen my dad, who's a super soldier. I've seen him get threatened or be in a situation where he thought he was going to get mugged or whatever, or maybe he was going to get mugged, and I've seen him be able to just go into like kung fu mode in like 2 seconds and like disarm somebody who's trying to harm them that has a weapon. So it's like, I've seen it in my life. Let's just put it that way. I definitely have seen weird things and had weird stuff happen to you. Like I used to be able to sit down and predict the future. I used to be able to see the future when I was a kid. And I wouldn't be able to control what I was seeing. And a lot of times it'd be really mundane things like, math class 3 days from now, or a weird interaction with, just not weird, but just a small interaction with an old lady on the bus a week from now. Like weird stuff. It wasn't ever like I saw coronavirus before it happened or something. It was never like that. It was all but I could make myself see really small weird things, and I'll experiment with it and have fun with it. And then, yeah, so I've had a lot of that going on after my life, seer type abilities. So, which I know I was used for in the programs a lot. Um, I have terms of service where they basically just use me as like a orb or a looking glass. But I guess I kind of want to get wrapping up with the interview here. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we end this?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I feel like we flew along and covered a lot of things. I mean, covered a lot of ground. I think that the astral topic is really interesting, and I feel like we could do a whole one on that. It'd be I feel like it'd almost be really cool to have that Dan Winters guy come on our show or on the Fractal Weapons channel and do a little. We could do a little talk on um on the astral realm and how it interacts with our reality and stuff like that. Because we could definitely talk about just that for 2 hours. It's a fascinating subject. And that Daniel Winters guy seems like he's kind of, or Dan Winters, I think he just goes by Dan. But yeah, it seems like he's really knowledgeable on that. And it seems like when you guys had your back and forth each other in that brief interview, it was good. And I'd like to see more of that. So I'd have to reach out and talk to him. I'm not telling you, to you, the viewers, I can't guarantee it's gonna happen, but I think that'd be really cool.
I think I'm pretty good friends with Alex. I can try and have Alex contact Dan, see if maybe he would be interested in something like that.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. I think I should also just like maybe watch one of that guy's YouTube videos where he talks, because I'd love to just like learn. Yeah, I'd love to just learn more about him, because when I went on a show, he was dropping a lot of knowledge, and a lot of it was stuff that I don't necessarily hear other people talking about. So
right, yeah, and the one thing that he talked about, and one of the things that I was used as a pilot in a lot of these programs, not only US, Russian, and German programs, but it was almost like it was like a weird, like I didn't have to either be in them or I could be in them, but it was all done with like implants, and I wasn't like, it was like sensory, like they would take, like I would have, like I wouldn't see anything, and it was almost like a feeling motion. It was like this weird chair that was like, it made me feel like I was like either like right there, like either I was the ship or what, but I could feel it, because we would go through like wormholes. Yeah. And the weird thing is that Dan called something, and I think it was like some weird terminology, and I was stuck in my head, but called it riding the tornadoes. And it had, I probably took it totally different than what he meant it to be. But the weird thing is that I've always, since I was a little girl, I've dreamt of tornadoes in my dream. And
they have the tornado in the Wizard of Oz, and then also Follow the Yellow Brick Road, which has to do with following. There's paths, there's streams of energy you can follow in space or something like that, and that's where Follow the Yellow Brick Road comes from. And yeah, so just pointing out that there's some Wizard of Oz programming type stuff going on there when it comes to the tornado, following the tornado, and you dreaming about tornadoes and stuff like that. Makes me think of the
and my
movie Wizard of Oz.
My son too, he dreams about them.
Yeah, and that's, Wizard of Oz is huge when it comes to being connected to these programs. But
yeah, I was stuck on what was that? When you pull somebody behind on a boat with one of those big huge floaties. I had never been on that before. You know, my fear of water, and I was determined I wasn't going to fall in the water. So it was pulling me. They kept trying to flip me, but they couldn't flip me. And they're like, "You've been on this before." I said, "I've never been on this before." But it was like I was using my abilities to keep me from, I could balance it. And that almost like triggered a memory of feeling that movement and knowing which way to go, so that, one wrong move, you're propelling a huge miles long ship. It's stressful sometimes, but yeah, that was all done by intuition. It was through the pineal gland and being almost
psychically
like interacting.
And the ship is alive. The ship is alive.
Yes.
and it has your DNA embedded in it so that you can interact with it.
Exactly. It was hard. It was like as one, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, when you think of like how they used to call these guys to call their old ships she, Betsy, have names for them and stuff. It comes to a whole new level when your ship literally has organic material and actually does think and is sentient.
Yes.
That's like, so having a name for your ship is all that much more relevant when that comes into play.
Yeah, in fact, I'm actually going to go and get my pilot's license because I have an alter that's a pilot, and I went and looked at this plane, and he was telling me, and then he wanted me to show exactly what you do when you start off, and all the dials and everything and what they tell, and there's a certain sequence, and I was able to go through it on my own the second time without him telling me. So I'm definitely going to get my pilot's license.
Taking it old school, flying old school.
Why not? You know what? Because if anything happens, cars are just not, at least I'd have some way to be able, because there's a lot of them that you don't have to use too much gas on them. They
Yeah,
have like a little propeller, or else, anything that can glide.
I haven't looked into it much, but I do know that it's great to have your own plane. To have a plane is a freedom that, I mean, there's freedom and then there's that kind of freedom, and that's a whole nother level of freedom. So yeah, that'd be really cool. I really hope. I also worry because planes are notorious for having problems and crashing and stuff, but that's all isn't a reason to not do something. Life is full of risks. You got to live.
That's weird because even when I was younger, I always knew that if anything were to happen, like a plane crash or a car crash or train wreck or boat sinking, that I wouldn't die. I always had that weird knowledge that it's.
Well, apparently they keep us alive until they don't need us anymore. Like you talked about in the last interview, the people in white coming into an individual's room after they cut themselves and then they're healed up. That kind of stuff's real. If they interfere and micromanage our lives. And then you're also talking about the weird experience with your father, and then like it was like a repeat, like Groundhog Day, and you think they edited it. Yeah, that's another thing we could probably do a whole show on, is the fact that they edit our lives and edit our reality.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was really great having you on the show. Again, I don't mean to cut it short, but
no, we were kind of struggling on this today. Just
yeah, I'm glad that we did it though, because yeah, I almost wonder if there's some sort of programming there or something going on where we just kept on missing each other. Or, well, literally one of the main time that I canceled or whatever was because I got taken, and I had it was messed up what
mentioned
happened.
that to you the other day that I was taken, but I didn't tell you what happened. I started having a pain on my left side of my head. In fact, it still hurts there, but I buried my face into my pillow and I'm rubbing my face on that pillow because it felt good. It was nice and cool. And I wasn't even tired. And all of a sudden, bam, I like sat up and like looked over and I like looked around and I'm like, what the hell? I'm wide awake now. And I'm like, I was almost falling asleep. Well, I look at my watch because I wear my watch, keeps track of my deep sleep and my light sleep. Said I had been sleeping for 20 minutes. 20 minutes exactly. But no deep sleep, just 20 minutes of sleep. But I don't remember falling asleep. All I remember is that pain. And it was like I was rubbing my face in the pillow and it was like right here. And it was like, oh God, why don't they just leave me alone? And then bam, I'm out. And then 20 minutes later, I'm awake again. It's weird shit like that continuously.
We live in the Twilight Zone. Our lives are the Twilight Zone.
I'm still waiting for that moment. I mean, I even did last night, I did 12 minutes of deep sleep and I kept trying to push it to get more sleep. And I ended up getting like almost 8 hours of sleep and I still only got 12 minutes of deep sleep. And we had to function like this. There was that one day that I went to sleep for 4 hours and 19 minutes, and I got 0 minutes of deep sleep, and I still had to get up and go to work. I was dragging. But eventually we will get sleep.
Eventually.
Eventually.
Well, I hope that I did a good job of interviewing you. I've had some people make comments on the channel, not with our interview, but just that I talk over the guests sometimes. And I hope I didn't do that. And I want to apologize to the listeners. If I ever do that, I'm not a professional. I'm not David Letterman. I'm somebody that just has experiences and is trying to have a conversation, have conversations about real stuff that isn't being talked about because it's so taboo, and someone has to talk about it. So, yeah, I apologize, and I'll try to do a better job in the future. And yeah, thank you all to everybody who's paying attention to this channel. I hope that it helps you. And thanks again, Eve, for coming on the show. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.